Got the best coaches in the game. We really ain't playing. We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief. We be piecing these puzzles, occupy the chunk of the pie. Ain't no lie when we hit the block. Helmets, casket is top. You be seeing helmet after helmet, helmet after helmet. First place, second place, fifth place, eighth place, 12th place, 15, 16, 20. So many helmets, you got blurred vision. We got too many. Tick your check. Oh man, shit. They got us fucked up. Army, regroup. We pledge always to have that edge. We don't fire warning shots. Competition just dropped. We locked and loaded before lock. Whatever the time, yeah. Do you even correlate?
Being the best requires a willingness to outwork your competition. There's always someone smarter, faster, sharper, more naturally gifted to come around.
Welcome back, DFS Army. This is FantasyFling. We are looking at the Yahoo Week 10 DFS main slate. So last week we cashed by paying down at running back, playing the chalk, playing the Ramondre Stevensons, the Travis Etiennes, and obviously paying up for Josh Allen, and then paying Tyreek Hill. Paying up for Tyreek Hill, playing Tyreek Hill. This week, we'll look to keep it going. Let's take a look at the main slate on Yahoo. All right, let's do it. So we're going to do game by game tile real quick over at DFS Army Domination Station. So the one that screams out at us right away is the Minnesota and Buffalo game. And what sucks about this is this game, when I first saw it on the slate, I thought this would have a lot of goodness in it. There would be a lot of stacking options. Obviously, you have a lot of firepower on both sides with Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis. And then on the other side, you have Minnesota with Kirk Cousins and Thielen, Delvin Cook. They just traded for T.J. Hawkinson. So this game looked really good. However, Josh Allen, he has a little bit of a elbow injury going on. Not expected to have Tommy John surgery. Not expected to be serious, but it is limiting him right now. So he's day to day. We don't know if he's going to play. If he does play, obviously, he's always a tournament play just because of his upside. And I would say this week I wouldn't play him in cash just because, we don't know how he's going to be limited. We don't know if they're going to hand the ball off more, if it's going to affect him on the deep ball. Certainly looks like it did a little bit last week. He just struggling to hit a couple of those deep balls with Gabe Davis at the end of the game. Normally Josh Allen is the kind of guy that puts it in front of the quarterback, the wide receiver, and the ball was just a little underthrown to Josh Allen standard. So we don't know, right? In tournaments, obviously, he will always have that upside. He's always worth being played. But in cash games, I like Josh Allen and Tua and Phil, or not Josh Allen, I'm sorry, Mahomes, Fields, and Tua a little bit better this week. So speaking of the next game, 48.5 points. We got Detroit Lions going against Chicago. Justin Fields has been unbelievable. He's actually been the quarterback one over the past several weeks, past 3-4 weeks. Just been unreal. Scored 42 points last week, was in the nuts, rushed for over 100 yards, had a rushing touchdown through 3 touchdowns through the air, and, brought along 2 pass catches with him, which is something that we couldn't even fathom a little while ago that, Justin Fields would bring 2 pass catchers along with him to win large field GPPs like the Yahoo Baller, but he did. So this week, this game projects very well from a competitive standpoint and passing and running the ball. So according to the Statsational Power Rankings, Detroit and Chicago both project quite well, running the ball, passing the ball as well, and just overall points, 48.5. That's what Vegas has it at. Sensational Power Rankings have this game over 50. So this is a game we like on both sides of the ball. Detroit, good matchup for opposing quarterback and wide receivers and tight ends. They just traded their 2 best defensive players. And the past 2 weeks, they've given up an average of 42 points. So it's been bad for their defense. So Detroit projects quite well this week. Hopefully, this will be a back and forth affair. Nonetheless, we'll get into it. I like Fields this week. I like both his pass catchers because they're priced cheap. Darnell Mooney and Chase Claypool. And obviously, Fields is in play. So, next game we have on the slate that actually projects quite well to KC and Jacksonville. So, over 50 points, 50 and a half. KC with the 30-point game total. Love Patrick Mahomes this week. Their passing offense projects very well, over 300 yards, according to the Statsational Power Rankings. That said, who's it going to go to? As far as the pass catchers, it's MBS, it's Mecole Hardman, it's Juju, Sky Moore's getting targets. They just traded for Tony. It was his first game. Are we going to see more from him? You would kind of expect that. And then Mecole Hardman's getting carries, he's getting targets. So very hard to project who is going to get the workload at wide receiver, unless you're doing MME, 150 lineups, and you're going, as many different ways as you can with the KC pass catchers. I think the safest bet is to just play Mahomes and Kelsey as well. Obviously, they're pricey. It's hard to fit both in a lineup, but certainly if you can, that is certainly where I like going this week. Definitely Mahomes in cash for me. Now, Cleveland going against Miami. Again, with the game that shot out last week, we had Chicago and Miami, but Miami has been in winning GPP, winning lineups consistently throughout the year. Tyreek Hill, he's the best wide receiver in the league. It doesn't matter whether he changes to Mahomes, Tua, he has been exceptional. And honestly, watching the game yesterday, watching the condensed version of the games, Hill should be having an even better year than he's having right now. Tua the arm strength, it's real. He does overthrow his wide receivers, both Hill and Waddle, a lot. If a wide receiver has to slow down and adjust to the ball, he's underthrowing him. So Tua, he's great. Short, intermediate throws. He's very accurate. He throws with anticipation. He's very good. But that said, even though Hill has had an amazing season, he could be doing even better right now. And he's in play every week because we know what his ceiling is. He's got there scoring 30 plus points, but he can go off for 50 points. Absolutely. Each and every week. This game projects well. Cleveland on the other side, obviously Chubb's always in play. Miami, though, they project to throw the most this week against Cleveland, but does project back and forth. Very close game. Got Miami winning over 50 points. We love this game. Cleveland is a good matchup for opposing running backs. Obviously, if you want to get contrarian, play Mostert, Jeff Wilson, you could do that. And then Miami's a great matchup for opposing quarterbacks and tight ends. So I do like David Njoku if you want to have a little bit of Jacoby Brissett exposure. I won't be mad at you for doing that this week. Houston, oh my gosh. Houston, this week, they got Saquon Barkley. Houston is by far the worst run defense in the league. And you have Saquon Barkley this week. Low game total, but I love some Saquon. The Giants obviously project to be the top rushing team, arguably 1A, 1B with Chicago, with Fields getting as many rushing yards as he is. Chicago and New York Giants, they both project very well running the ball. As far as the running back, Saquon Barkley, love him this week. On the Houston side, I don't know. Obviously, Dameon Pierce is kind of their bell cow. But over in the half PPR format, that is Yahoo. I don't normally like playing two running backs in the same game. I would say if you decided to go with Josh Jacobs or Derrick Henry as opposed to Saquon Barkley, then you could certainly play Dameon Pierce. Dameon Pierce is in play at $21. Other than that, there's not a lot that I love in this game except for maybe some Daniel Jones +1 stacks as leverage off of Barkley. If he ends up being the chalk, that would be about it for me. Now, New Orleans and Pittsburgh. Not a lot to like here, right? Pittsburgh, they got a new quarterback. They traded away Chase Claypool last week. Najee Harris has just looked horrible this year. the rumor today was that Jalen Warren is going to start to see more carries. So I don't like anything on that side. Low game total, low team total for Pittsburgh. On the other side, you have New Orleans, and Dalton hasn't looked good. Obviously, Kamara is always in playing tournaments. I don't like him in cash, but they do project pretty well passing the ball. Pittsburgh is a great matchup for wide receivers. My problem is Chris Olave is priced too high at this point. He's over $25, and he just hasn't seen the touchdown. So other than tournaments, I probably would just avoid this game. Now, this game, very low game total, but surprisingly enough, obviously Derrick Henry is always in play. He has just been exceptional. As I'm going to go to my cheat sheet here, just running the ball, he's averaged like 130 plus yards, and like he scored like 8 touchdowns over the past 4 games. So he's averaging like 2 touchdowns a game. Just incredible. Denver pretty neutral against a running back, but they have given up quite a bit to like Josh Jacobs and Travis Etienne and whatnot. So it's not like their elite defense is what it is. It's more so on the passing side. If they're susceptible to bleed points to any position, it's definitely the running back. And obviously we like Henry on the other side of that, specifically with the Broncos defense being as good as it is, you do get a lot more opportunities for the other side of the ball. Now this week, their offense has been bad. Let's be clear that they have a 17-point game total. So overall, you kind of want to avoid this, but based on the Statsational power rankings, they do project for quite a few passing yards, almost 300 to be exact. So there are some cheap guys that you can certainly play. Jerry Jeudy. Sutton hasn't been getting the targets lately, but Jeudy has seen a huge uptick in targets, and then mainly Dulcich, specifically at the highly variant tight end position. I would really just be considering playing Dulcich as far as the Broncos. Dulcich and Henry are pretty much the only 2 guys that I like from this game. Now the Colts, Frank Reich is out. They hired Jeff Saturday as the interim head coach. No NFL head coaching experience, not even coaching experience. No college, a sub 500 team in high school, I guess, as a coach. And their play caller has 0 play calling experience too. So good luck with that one. If you want to play anyone on the Indy side, and that includes Deion Jackson for me, I don't want anything to do with this week. On the Raiders side, yes, Josh Jacobs, I think he projects quite well. I think the Raiders could potentially just beat the brakes off of Indy this week. And, Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow at, low price, certainly tournament consideration as far as cash, Jacobs, Adams. And then if there's no Waller, again, I would play Moreau this week. Dallas and Green Bay, don't like a lot from this game. I'm just looking at the numbers. It doesn't project well at all from the Statsational power rankings. A low game total projects low on points. I would say if Zeke misses again, I do think you could play Tony Pollard in this game. And that would be really all that I would be interested in this game. And then the last one we have is Arizona and the Los Angeles Rams. Not a lot to like in this game as well. I would say Arizona is really bad against the tight end, so I would have some consideration for Higbee. But Arizona, their defense looks bad. There's just issues with Kyler Murray just throwing interceptions and just turning the ball over. And the Los Angeles Rams have a good defense, so that's an offense that is would like to avoid this week. So I'm going to go over to my cheat sheet. And this is my article that I am currently working on. It will be out this evening at DFS Army. I will tweet it out as soon as I finish it. Follow me at FantasyFling if you are not, as I will tweet this out. And when I finish it, another thing I do is because I record this podcast on a Wednesday, I've started doing a thread on Saturdays or very early Sunday morning, in which I will kind of have my updated thoughts of the slate as all the news comes out. So I really like to wait for all the injury news to come out. to kind of let you know where I'm going. When we have running back, for example, a couple weeks ago, we had, is Zeke going to play or not? Because so many times he's had a questionable or doubtful tag and he ends up playing. But once we got clarity that he wasn't playing, that's when Pollard was, a lock. So this is something that I tweet out on Saturdays as we get that updated info. So top pay up option this week for me with Josh Allen nursing that elbow injury and miss the game, or at least be limited in, questionable upside in that game. So for me, it is Patrick Mahomes. So even last week when he only threw one touchdown, he still scored 35 points. He had 43 completions on like 68 attempts, something crazy, 446 yards and a rushing touchdown. So his floor and ceiling are just too high, and they project very well this week throwing the ball. So I do think he is the safest play, and we like that in cash games. Now, someone asked in the comments last week, and please comment if you have any suggestions that you like for players, or you have, any questions, please comment. Also hit that like button while you're there, please. But someone asked, what's the difference between cash games and tournaments? So cash games are typically going to be 50s, double ups and head to heads. So, specifically in like 50-50s, we are not trying to beat the entire field. We only need to beat 50% of the field. So we don't want a high variance lineup that we would use to win a tournament like the Yahoo Baller. And that lineup, we want a lot of variance. We are trying to come in first place. We know most times that, that lineup is either going to not cash or it's going to come in first place. Like that is the idea with a high variance lineup. With the cash game lineup, we are looking for high median scoring and as little variance as possible. So we want high floor players, a guy like Patrick Mahomes, who is very consistent, right? So he's had, most of the year, his average is like 25 to 30 points. So you're paying for floor with a guy like Patrick Mahomes. So those are the type of guys that we like. So I got Tua in my player pool as well, but I'm more likely to lean Tua in tournaments. And, when I talk about floor, another guy that brings a lot of floor because of his rushing ability is Justin Fields. I do think his floor right now is better just because he's been so exceptional running the ball. It's just too high. He's averaged 100 yards per game over the last 4 games, and he's scored 3 touchdowns in that span. And he has also started throwing the ball really well. He's averaged 2.5 touchdowns in his last 2 games. And this week, he's got the Detroit Lions, who's got a great matchup. So I love Fields this week if I can, if I need that $5 salary or relief off of Patrick Mahomes. And obviously, I love Fields in tournaments as well. So running backs, top projected back this week is Derrick Henry. He has a 19-point projection. It's close with Saquon. Now, this is over the DFS Army domination station. But the Broncos defense, again, although elite versus the pass, it's about neutral on the ground. It's giving up big games to Travis Etienne and Jacobs. So that said, Henry hasn't rushed for less than 100 yards in over 5 games, and he has 8 touchdowns in this span. So love Henry this week. My top running back, though, is the Giants offense. It projects to run all over Houston this week, according to the Sensational Power rankings, and it's no wonder why, because Giants are the Texans have the worst run defense in the league. So for me, like, this is just a no-brainer. You have an elite talent going against the worst run defense in the league. And by the way, 2 weeks ago, we saw the same scenario play out, and I told you to play Derrick Henry in that situation. This time around, we got Saquon Barkley, and, in that situation, Henry rushed for over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. So certainly take that. Josh Jacobs, as I mentioned, he's my least favorite $30 running back between Barkley and Henry and Jacobs, but I do love Josh Jacobs this week. And obviously, if salary wasn't a thing, I would probably play Jacobs, Henry, and Barkley, but you can't play 2 running backs in the 30s, so you certainly can't play 3. So I'm not playing him, but again, I really think the Raiders just could smash the Colts, and a lot of that scoring could certainly go through Josh Jacobs as they project very well. Now, Travis Etienne, ranked 5th in fantasy points per dollar this week at 0.62. He is that running back who has just continued to come through with us, and we've seen his price rise. So I'm going to go over here real quick to Yahoo, and we'll look at ETN's game logs. Look at this, guys. So 16, 14, 14, 17, 20, 19, 17, 21. He's now up to $27. So, we've seen his price rise and we've rode him through that. And to be honest, he will be over $30. It's unless he gets hurt, he's going to be over $30 at some point. And, we're going to continue to play him until he becomes unaffordable. So, next guy I liked, Dameon Pierce, 6th in overall projections at 15 points, averaging over 20 attempts per game. Also seeing passing down work. So, I do like him. Obviously, as I said, I would play Dameon Pierce, but I'm not going to play him in the same game as Barkley. Dameon Pierce isn't seeing enough passing game work. And, in half PPR format, I typically don't like to play 2 running backs in the same game. If I was playing, for example, Derrick Henry, that would be when I would be more likely to play Dameon Pierce. As I mentioned, Tony Pollard, if Zeke can't go, I would definitely play Tony Pollard again at $23. That's certainly a bargain at his price. So wide receivers for me, and we'll kind of look at DFS Army, the domination station. And by the way, if you're a DFS Army subscriber, you have access to this. I use this each and every week. This is our domination station, and the geek DFS Army owner and CEO calls it Desus, like Jesus, Desus, the domination station. And this is something that you use every week because it'll pump players into your lineup that are coming up very good in projections, like Joe Mixon, right? Due for some positive regression. Even though he's been so bad for prior to last week, he kept coming up in the domination station. So this is obviously how you get an edge, because you can't always know the players that are really due for some positive regression. The matchup's good. They're due for positive regression. We can't all know all those players, but the domination station does, and it will just pump those into your lineups. And obviously it worked great last week for Joe Mixon. You could set all kinds of rules, stacking rules, all the things. But anyways, what I like to do is to get a feel for projections, who is projected highest this week. Obviously, Cooper Kupp is, but it's a low game total. He should be priced down from $40 but at this point, because $40 is the highest and he's still priced high, and he just hasn't got there. Tyreek Hill is head and shoulders above Cooper Kupp this year in scoring, and he's priced cheaper, and it's just a no-brainer for me given the matchup and the projection from team total, game total, passing yard standpoint. So love Tyreek Hill this week. Devontae Adams projected very well as well. And then we also can sort by fantasy points per dollar. So these are oftentimes how we find our value players, our Hunter Renfrows, our Brandon Cooks, which I wouldn't play Brandon Cooks this week, but check this out. Last week, one of the comments was like, I love Rondale Moore at $11. This is exactly why I play Yahoo. So let's check out Rondale Moore. I played him. I listed him in my plays last week. $11, $10. If you can play a guy for $11 and you know you're going to get 10 points from him, that's easy money. That's what we had last week. He's only priced up a couple dollars this week. He's definitely in play again as well. So Tyreek Hill, 33% target share on the season. The touchdowns haven't quite been there, but he got in the end zone last week. Certainly not his fault. He's the number one wide receiver in scoring right now. He's actually having a career year so far through 9 games, which is crazy. But, we'll see how that plays out over 18 games. But I love him again this week. He's $37. Jalen Waddle. So I'm not playing both of these guys, definitely in cash games. You got to play one or the other. I'd prefer to play Tyreek Hill. Jalen Waddle also getting a 23% target share on the season. Last 2 games, over 95 yards, and he's averaged 3 touchdowns. He gets in the end zone a lot. So prior to this last week, he's been the guy between him and Hill to get most of the touchdowns. And obviously, we love that on Yahoo in the half PPR format. We need touchdowns. So Devontae Adams, 45% target share last week. 31% on the season. He's 4th in projections. They made an emphasis to get him the ball. And by the way, he was angry because they got him the ball in the first half. This dude scored over 30 points, and he did most of his damage in the first half. And then they went away from that too much in the second half. So I love Devontae Adams this week, and they obviously should be targeting him, continuing to target him as his target share is elite of elite. It's up there with Tyreek Hill. Now, Amon-Ra, $20, 27% target share last week, 13 points projection, one of the top fantasy points per dollar plays this week. And, again, as I alluded to, that game looks to be back and forth between Detroit and Chicago. Chicago has a horrible defense. Amon-Ra projects very well this week. Detroit projects as one of the highest passing totals. And obviously, Amon-Ra is going to continue to get more targets without Hawkinson. Obviously, it was ugly last week between Green Bay and Detroit, but at $20 in cash games, we'd certainly go back to Amon-Ra. Not going to win you a tournament, most likely, but in cash games, we're all about it. Now, I got 2 Chicago wide receivers here because they're both very cheap. They project very well in this game this week. Wouldn't play both of them together, obviously, but kind of choose. Darnell Mooney, 29% target share last week, 22% on the season. He was in the winning GPP builds. He, I got a touchdown last week. Great week for him. So we'll pull him up here. Wide receiver, Mooney. Yeah, 14 points. He's been the leading receiver for sure. 53, 73, 68, 43. But yeah, he got in the end zone last week. He is playable with the amount of targets that he's seeing, and just our offense just really getting going over the past couple weeks. And then Chase Claypool, first week there, 22% target share. He's $15. I'm more likely to lean there with Chase Claypool this week. Just a little bit of a salary savings so I can afford some of the pay ups. And then, as I mentioned, Rondale Moore. We saw 10 plus points last week, and he was only $11, but even at $13, he had a lot of targets. So 33% target share, 9 targets the last 2 games. DeAndre Hopkins being in the offense has really opened things up for him. And then we will go over to the domination station for some tight ends that we like. Again, I always look at projection. Kelsey, stud coming off a dud. He had a bad game. He's throwing his helmet. There was all kinds of memes. But they project very well passing the ball. And Kelsey, his targets are just unreal. So he's been the one constant in the offense. Him up. 17 targets last week. So, for his salary, he didn't get there, obviously. 15 points, that's not enough, but he hasn't seen the end zone in a while. So this is a guy is definitely due for some positive regression. 10, 18, 24. So yeah, he's averaging 8 targets a game. And obviously he's due to get back in the end zone. It's been several weeks for him. So I like Kelsey this week at tight end if you can afford the pay up, which I will do in tournaments, but in cash, like I said, I love David Njoku this week. Great matchup against Miami. They're not good against the tight end. He's $17. He's almost half the price of Kelsey, projected for 8 points. Also Higbee, $14, projected. Again, Arizona, they're bad against the tight end. He's $14, so projected for 8 points as well. So I would prefer Higbee over even Njoku, just to that $3 savings there. And then when you go from fantasy points. And then last, Greg Dulcich, like I said, the Broncos offense being concentrated. Actually, KJ Hamler, it might even be more concentrated this week. KJ Hamler is nursing a hamstring injury. There's a chance he might not play. This is actually what he was on IR for. Well, he had a torn ACL that he was recovering from, and it was load management. Dulcich was on IR for hamstring injury, but hamstring is fine. So you got to think Sutton, Judy, and Dulcich. It's going to be even more condensed in that offense. And Dulcich has really been the spark the past few weeks. If we look at his game totals, yeah. I mean, this is about as good as it gets at tight end for a tight end price in the teens. 11 points, 8 points, 10 points. He's got a touchdown, and then even with this 87 yards, he was tackled at the goal line. So, he was so close to having 2 touchdowns in 3 weeks. And he's been targeted other times. So he's getting targeted in the red zone. He's getting targets, and he's doing a lot with those targets. It's extremely consistent. So I would play Dulcich for sure. He would be in my cash pool. He would also be in my tournament pool. And then when we go to defenses, sort by fantasy points per dollar. These are the top ones I like. New York Giants going against Houston. That's kind of a no-brainer. Giants have a good defense. Houston is not a good team. And then specifically if Brandon Cooks sits again, what is this offense going to be besides Dameon Pierce? It's a lot of guys that you've probably never heard of that they're throwing the ball to. Las Vegas Raiders, we mentioned it, going against Jeff Saturday-led bad Colts team. I would certainly eat that up. $13 salary, great fantasy points per dollar play, good projection. And then also have some interest in Miami. They score a lot of points. They got Bradley Chubb last week. More avenues for them to get after the quarterback. So they are who I like. Now, as far as my top stack of the week, I like Mahomes and Kelsey as my top stack of the week. I do think this stack will probably score the most points on the slate. This is most likely to score the most points. We have Kansas City projected for over 300 passing yards and a 30-point game, or 30-point team total with a 54-point team total. Kelsey, and Jacksonville is bad against opposing wide receivers. Well, Kelsey is more like a wide receiver, pass catching tight end. And like I said, stud coming off a dud. Now, it is pricey. So if you want to get different, if you want to get off of Kelsey, you want to play some Sky Moore, MBS, Juju, do your thing. Obviously, if you're MME in it, go a lot of different ways. But I do think there is a great chance that Patrick Mahomes is the top stack of the week this week, being back on the main slate. And then let's look at some top leverage plays before we get out of here. So we'll go over to FanDuel because there's nothing too crazy about Yahoo's pricing this week. And they use the same half PPR format. So this will give us a good understanding of who the top plays are from a projection standpoint. So we use the domination station. We will sort by projections. Now, I promise you, I've seen this movie before. Justin Fields is going to be higher on than 6%. Tua is going to be higher on than 6%. So when we're looking at quarterbacks, we got to kind of think some of these guys that might go under the radar a little bit. Daniel Jones, recency bias. I could totally see him being lower owned this week, specifically with a lot of people playing Barkley. That might be some good direct leverage off of Barkley, 6% owned. He has ran the ball really well. It's set up passing the ball quite well. Might be getting Golladay back this week, going against Houston. If the Giants win and Barkley fails, I could certainly see it going to Daniel Jones. And haven't heard him mention a whole lot this week. I could see him going lower owned. Jacoby Brissett. recency bias. They had a bye week. Chubb is the main guy, but he's had a quietly good year. Less than 1% owned going against Miami. They project really well, over 250 passing yards, 26-point team total, 53-point game total. So I could totally see Jacoby Brissett smashing this week as well. I like him as a contrarian quarterback leverage play. Last week it was Joe Mixon. Who's it going to be this week? Nick Chubb, 4% projected ownership. That he's in a good matchup actually, and Cleveland does project for over 100 rushing yards. So we've seen ceiling games from Chubb before. I would certainly take some chances, specifically on half PPR sites like Yahoo and FanDuel. He's projected 4% owned. Obviously, this is the chalk we talked about it. Henry, Barkley, Jacobs, Etienne, Kamara, Pierce. Devin Singletary. Wow. That's quite high owned. I think with Josh Allen potentially missing the game, a lot of people are thinking that game could potentially go run heavy if Allen misses the game. Darrell Henderson, low owned. Cam Akers, horrible last week. So be interested to see how that goes. And then Jeff Wilson, he didn't get a lot of carries last week. Was just traded over. Yahoo baller, super contrarian play. Jeff Wilson, if news comes out that he's going to get a lot of carries, he could certainly be a contrarian play. Khalil Herbert, he already looks better than David Montgomery. He's in a timeshare, but if you're looking to get real contrarian, Chicago projects very well running the ball. Obviously, a lot of that is Justin Fields, but if we're thinking in terms of direct leverage and projections, Khalil Herbert. Now we'll go into wide receivers here. We've identified a lot of the chalky plays. And these are normally going to be the top projected plays, right? Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, DeAndre, Jalen, Amon-Ra. So a lot of the usual guys. But look at this. If everyone's on Tyreek Hill, 23%, direct leverage, Jalen Waddle, 8%. I like that play there, that contrarian play. Kind of talked about it with Jacoby Brissett. This game projects very well. Amari Cooper has been very good. I have him on a dynasty team. I know. I follow him every week. 1% projected ownership. Yes, I would love Amari right there. If people, check this closer to Sunday, Saturday night, Sunday morning, whatever it may be. But if really no one's going to chase the Fields and Mooney, I would go right back to the Fields and Mooney. Now, I'm not going to double stack Fields again this week. I do think that was an outlier, but I would go right back to that. Take some shots on Hunter Renfrow in tournaments. They certainly gave him a lot of money as long as his ownership stays quite low. And then Chase Claypool. So he was obviously in my cash pool with Mooney. With ownership like this, I would more likely play Mooney in cash, who's going to be hovering around like 8 to 10% or whatever it is, and then play Claypool in tournaments at less than 1% because he's just getting incorporated the offense. He didn't get all the touchdowns last week, but he got a 22% target share. So yeah, I would eat that up. Absolutely. So let's look at tight end and defenses, and then we'll finish this up. And specifically with tight end and defenses, these are positions of high variance. So we more so than the other positions, this is really how we're looking to get different. This is why in large field GPPs, you saw Tyler Conklin winning tournaments. You saw last week Cole Kmet. These are guys that are less than 1% owned, being the difference makers and taking down large field GPPs. Taysom Hill always has tournament winning upside because he's the X factor who could get a bunch of carries, specifically with Dalton playing horrible. He could get several carries and score 3 touchdowns. So yeah, at less than 1%, that is exactly when I would want to play Taysom Hill. Cole Kmet coming in very low owned again. Gesicki as leverage off of very chalky Tyreek. Absolutely. And then defense. So as much as it pains me to say, as a Broncos fan, yeah, take some shots on Tennessee. The Broncos offense has certainly turned the ball over several times. So, whether it be running backs putting the ball on the ground or Wilson throwing interceptions or getting sacked, whatever it may be. So, yeah, Raiders going against the Colts. I would have a very hard time seeing this hold up, but if they stayed low owned, and this is probably a thing where it's more so a FanDuel pricing, 4,800, probably not going to be that low owned over on Yahoo where they're only $11. And you know what? Chicago's Bears defense has been awful, but the Detroit Lions are awful too. So I could see getting a little bit of exposure to them in tournaments. Don't get crazy, but a little bit. And then the Denver Broncos defense, absolutely. Low ownership. I would play both sides of that. So specifically, if you got Malik Willis, who just looked awful passing the ball, I would certainly play the Denver Broncos defense, who definitely is an elite defense. If they're able to just slow down Derrick Henry and get a little bit of a lead and make the Titans throw the ball, that can get ugly for them. So I think that's going to do it. Appreciate y'all watching. Let me know in the comments who you like this week. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and hit that notification button so you never miss an episode, and specifically when we go live. So we'll see y'all next week. Hope you win some monies this week. We will see you next week. Take care.